Here we go again. Last time though. This is the last time. And it's for Nazir. We're going Nazir now. I wish it would just keep my settings. Other things keep my settings. Valkii, lady. And I'm a lady. Alright. Obviously. Skip. Okay. Pretend to be a... I vaguely remember the things I did. Whatever. Okay, Nazir. As I search my way through the crowd that has started to grow in the middle of the room, I find myself in near proximity of what appears to be a furious nobleman. Most unbecoming of a prince from the royal bloodline. Mingling in a lowly tavern and on terms of equality with the commoners, even the very dregs of the gutter. What horror! No idea what I was thinking, my dear chap, I assure you. I urge you, your highness, in the strongest possible terms, never again to... Prince Nazir yawns widely right into the nobleman's face, which now twisted with disgust. Oh, I do beg your pardon, sir. Had a rather late night, you know. But do go on, you were getting relatively interesting. The nobleman's face turns red, then purple, then chalk white in quick succession. He tries to regain his composure by adjusting his coat flaps and huffing up his chest towards the prince. The king governs through the consent of his peers, not his tenants. You would do well to remember that, your highness. Yes, peers and tenants and so forth. Very sensible, very proper. His gaze wanders and stops once focused on me. I say, isn't that youthful individual hovering behind your shoulder my new tutor? I step forth, unsure whether it was polite of me to disturb them, despite Prince Nazir having addressed me. Excuse me, I was hoping to have a moment with the prince. No, you will have to excuse us. I am conferring with Prince Nazir on a matter of great importance. My word, I don't believe it. I absolutely forgot. The nobleman and I turn to stare at him. You made me promise you the first dance of the night. How awful of me to let it slip my mind like that. You did? I did. You did. You'll have to forgive us, old sport, if my friend here steals me away for a waltz or three. I did promise her, and after all, a gentleman must always keep his word. What? Or try to, anyhow. Well, that's a weird sentence. Matters of state take precedence before personal pleasure. Splendid of you to be so obliging. Got a dance lined up yourself too, have you? No? Chin up. The night is still young. Well, toodaloo, pip-pip, and tally-ho. With a level of grace that only comes from time-consuming practice, Prince Nazir swiftly takes me by the wrist and half leads, half drags me away from the outraged noble, into the adjacent ballroom where the orchestra is just striking up a waltz. Before I begin to grasp what has happened, I find myself whirling in a slow and stately waltz, face to face with the mischievously grinning Prince Nazir. Dance, why not? I cannot help but grin back. It is impossible to resist those dancing eyes and charming smile. I fall into step with him, allowing him to guide me through the delicate, complex footwork of the waltz. Thanks for saving me from that dreadful bore. What was the matter with him? He sounded so angry. Nothing really. I, by chance, lived for a paltry few weeks at a tavern in a village that may form part of his fief. He shrugs in a graceful fashion that aligns perfectly with the music. Had I not been privy to our conversation, I would have taken the gesture as simply part of the dance. I didn't tell anyone, of course, just took things easy for a short while. That's hardly appropriate behavior for a prince, but I suppose it doesn't really merit him being so upset. No, but there's more to it than that. While I was living there, I got wind that his agents, extortionists masquerading as tax collectors for the most part, were fleecing the local inhabitants most ruthlessly. Far beyond the legal tithe demanded by the crown. He's keeping the difference for himself. They all do that, you know. Nobles. He was one of the worst offenders. Half of the village was starving, and his thugs just kept squeezing them for more and more. A flash of anger flickered behind his charismatic eyes before vanishing in an instant, leaving me to wonder if it had ever been there at all. What did you do then? Went to the Lord Regent, of course. Uncle summoned him to the capital and gave him a stern talking to. A little rap on the knuckle? Something like that. He was forced to give back everything he took from the villagers and warned never to do it again. That's why he was so angry with you. And no wonder. He had a pretty good thing going on over there before I put an end to it. The prince is not wholly the vagabond others make him out to be. Interesting. The waltz gradually dies away, leaving us two standing close to each other in the center of the ballroom, slightly out of breath. Prince Nazir flashes me a cheeky grin. That was marvelous. Do say you'll join me for another? I shake my head, smiling. Then I mustn't keep you any longer, milady. His fingertips carefully press against mine, as he takes my hand and bends down, laying his lips against my knuckle. He casts a cheeky grin as he pulls away. I blush, feeling my heart skip a little. Farewell for now, Valkii. Farewell, Nazir. A spark of delight leaps into his eyes, then he has gone, swept in a new stream of dancers, and a minute later I see him twirling a young, pretty, and clearly besotted countess in his arms. I take my leave from the state dinner as soon as it is polite to do so. Okie dokie. What we doing? This is the annoying part. Okay, you know what? Again, it's time for the pausing of all pauses. We're just going to keep pausing whenever I need to do the lessons, so I will see you in a second. Alright, there we go. We got some combat skill, which we will need at some point. Skip. I can do it. It's mine. I'm good. Alright. Oh my god. Maybe I should just unpause when there's something new. That's probably the better thing to do, right? Let's do that. I'm gonna do that. Okay, apparently there's something new here, but I don't really know why. Good evening, Lady Rosencruz, unless I'm wrong. Raphael steps in, closing the door behind him. A creased frown reveals troubled thoughts before he quickly returns to his usual impeccable demeanor. No, it's new. Raphael, what brings you here this evening? He clears his throat delicately. It concerns next week. Have you been informed of the upcoming events? I raise an eyebrow. Only Raphael himself and Sala update me on the weekly happenings, and seeing as the latter has yet to mention anything. No, I'm afraid I have heard nothing. I thought perhaps if Sala had already spoken. The Lord Regent and royal family are departing on a tour of Eskia, a tradition started by the late king. I know this, why can't I skip it? I see, what kind of tour? The king would spend a day or two meeting with his loyal lords and commoners, a tradition that the Lord Regent and princes wish to continue. Still confused. I nod back, thinking to the unfinished. Yeah, I know. He pauses before releasing a rare sigh and staring with apologetic eyes. Both Prince Seren and Prince Nazir have asked me to extend personal invitations for you to accompany them, but between the two of them, Prince Seren was the one who offered first. What? I was on my way to you when Prince Nazir spoke of his offer without giving me the proper chance to tell him that his brother had already made one. I smile and raise my hand. He stops mid-sentence, looking abashed. Do not fret, Raphael. I will understand and will explain the situation to the princes. Almost imperceptibly, Raphael's stance relaxes. That is appreciated. Though at risk of complicating things, I fear they have slightly different itineraries. You shall have to decide which one to accompany. He pauses. That said, I would encourage you to go with whomever you choose. I believe the fresh air would do you some good. He looks a bit concerned, and for a moment I feel as if I'm being chided for working too hard or avoiding the fine weather. What of Prince Aurelius? Can we skip now? No. I'm far from surprised that there was no invitation from him, but Prince Aurelius's plans still pique my curiosity nonetheless. God damn it, I always do that. Actually, Prince Aurelius usually joins the others a bit later. I look to him for further explanation, but when he offers nothing more, I simply shrug, best not to pry. My thanks. Let's see. I will obviously go with Prince Nazir this time. Remembering Prince Nazir's failed attempt to sneak from the palace a few weeks ago, I cannot help but smile at the memory. I have no doubt accepting his offer would be something of an adventure. And besides, from what I've seen, he really is memorable company. Turning back to my desk, I complete my responses to the princes and set them aside. Alright, cool beans. What is my shit at? I think we can take a second off to do something else. Like this. Though the village of Spellor is known for its idyllic pastoral countryside, it is one of the most important bread baskets of the kingdom. Unfortunately, owing to rapacious nobles and tax farmers, Spellor's rural infrastructure and economy are close to collapsing. Its recent harvests have been worryingly poor. Have I already read this one before? With food reserves and morale in Spellor at an all-time low, Nazir believes more needs to be done if disaster is to be averted for certain. To that end, he has approached me for help. I have gathered the ingredients for making a herbal stew that provides healing and sustenance to those who consume it. The entire palace is helping with preparations, but Nazir is working the hardest of all, keeping the alchemical fire needed to boil the stew going day and night. Poor Nazir. I don't think he has had a wink of sleep the past 2 days, and he looks as if he is close to collapsing. I approached Nazir today and offered to take over for him so he can catch a break. Nazir laughingly refused, but asked if we could relocate operations to the kitchen. Common fire, he points out, should work as well as our alchemical counterpart. I countered that common fire does not work as well as alchemical fire. Spreading the degree of heat perfectly even throughout the stew is key to its successful concoction. Moreover, this is an excellent chance for him to practice his magical skills and train his endurance. Finally, I reminded him what the nobles would say if they caught us sweating and scurrying in the kitchen. Nazir nodded in agreement, thumped me in the back, called me a very sound fellow, and begged me to bring him a bottle of extremely strong restorative potion before he drops dead on his feet. Nice. Alright. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, actually. Am I supposed to let it go so that Nazir likes me? Why doesn't he like me? Why doesn't he like me? Okay, well, I'm gonna friggin' save it down here. Let it go, maybe? Does that make him like me? I think it did, right? Okay. Then again, it is not my place to inform Lady Ishbel of her failings. She doesn't appear to be familiar with even the most basic forms of court etiquette, and I'm not her instructor. I clear my throat, glancing at the light streaming in through the windows. Your Highness, I believe the time has come to join the Lord Regent and your brother. Nazir stops mid-sentence, suddenly seeming apologetic. Oh, right you are as always, my dear. He smiles broadly at Lady Ishbel. Duty calls and all that. Okay, it was nice meeting you, Lady Rosencruz. We give our farewells and take our leave, yet Nazir seems reluctant to go. Clearly Lady Ishbel has made an impression on him. As we head towards the gate, I catch Nazir whistling happily and wonder the reason for his good cheer. Is it the tour, or perhaps Lady Ishbel? It couldn't possibly be my company, could it? Thank you for introducing me to Lady Ishbel. She seems... I hesitate, wondering how to express my feeling. Different from the other nobles. Nazir looks over his shoulder as if wishing to return to her for further conversation. He looks about as close to wistful as I have ever seen him. That she is. It's why I like her so much. I glance at Nazir, feeling a worried knot form in my stomach. Although no one was around to hear his offhand remark, he is a potential inheritor of the kingdom and she, the most minor of nobles. If this gets misunderstood... Not that his nightly visits to taverns or endeavours with the palace servants look any better, of course. If nothing else, those activities are not of a political nature. Spending time with a noble lady, however low the rank, is certain to have greater consequences, but I decide it is not my place to berate him. She's endearing. Yes, the best candidate to have as a younger sibling, don't you agree? I mean, can you imagine that younger of mine behaving so cute? I shudder at the mental image. Trying to get rid of it, I switch the topic. Where did you meet Lady Ishbel? Nazir lights up, the wistful look vanishing at the memory. I found her wandering the castle corridors, utterly lost, like a newborn kitten separated from her mother. I raise an eyebrow, finding it impossible not to mirror the smile on Nazir's face. She was too shy to ask the servants for help, you see. They were too polite to ask if she needed directions. I can't resist letting out a small chuckle. Lady Ishbel did not strike me as the shy type. I think back on her greetings to Nazir, me and Aurelius shaking my head. Nazir harumphs. All thanks to me, my dear Valkii. I helped her crawl out of her shell and blossoming into a blooming butterfly. He laughs at my expression. I'm not sure which is more shocking, the mixed metaphors or the lack of humility. Nazir controls his laughter long enough to wink at me. I'm joking, of course, but you know how those nobles can be. It's a wonder anyone understands a word they're saying half the time. And the servants here at the palace are nearly as bad sometimes, I swear. I do not blame Lady Ishbel for feeling so utterly lost. You cannot expect the common folk and those well-read to express themselves in the same manner. No, you bloody well can't. I ignore the vulgarity, but I cannot help my curiosity. Before I consider the impertinence of the thought, it has passed my lips. Your speech is quite different as well, Nazir, even compared to your brother's. I blush the moment I say it. My apologies if I'm too forward. But Prince Nazir, as is his nature, does not seem to notice or care. We reach the doors leading out to the courtyard. The guards stationed there bow as we approach. We are silent as the door opens. Across the courtyard near the gates, our party is waiting. The sun already peeks over the walls, reflecting off the Lord Marshal's breastplate. As we approach, the prince picks up where we left off in a lowered tone. I've always spent more time with the commoners, ever since I was a child. I smile, and for a moment I can imagine Prince Nazir as a youngling, laughing and playing with children who have mud on their faces and dirt underneath their fingernails. So you took to sneaking out of the palace at an early age then? I say it mainly in jest, but he becomes more serious. He nods towards the waiting party. A whinny from the prince's destrier echoes across to us. Actually, Uncle used to take me. In fact, he taught me all the best routes in and out of the palace. Drove the old man mad. I try, but it's impossible for me to hide my surprise. I glance in the Lord Regent's direction while slowing our pace so as to not reach them too fast. The Lord Regent? Really? Although my interactions with the man are limited, he did not strike me as the wild type, a tad overwhelmed by his duties perhaps, but serious enough. A soft smile plays on Prince Nazir's lips as he looks towards his uncle. You have to understand, he never had any intention nor desire to rule. He's been thrust into this position, and it fits him as poorly as a boot 2 sizes too small. To his credit, at least he can still walk. If it were me... Nazir shudders, leaving the sentence unfinished. He suddenly pats me on the back, hard enough to make me lose my breath. Enough about that, eh? He's fucking Canadian. Could you be any slower, nephew? The Lord Regent's bark is slightly annoyed, but mostly good-natured. Prince Seren stands close by, smiling gently, and the Lord Marshal has already arranged the troops into an escort formation. 1,000 apologies, Uncle. I had to wake this sleepyhead up to make sure she made it, you see. I open my mouth to protest, but the Lord Regent's laugh tells me he never believed it for a second. Ha! As good a story as any. Come on, saddle up. Let's get out of this place. Yes, Uncle. A stable boy hands me my horse, and I barely have time to exchange any pleasantries with Prince Seren before the whole party is underway. At the tour's end, I return to my chambers exhausted. Can we skip now? Yep, I knew it. What is the new one? This one, I guess. I know this is a good one, but we're gonna do some more lessons, so I will see you soon. Okay, finally, we're at a decision that will be new because we're gonna take Prince Nazir's side this time. So try to help the prisoner. Fuck you, nobles. We should try to break the enemy's compulsion. My dear Valkii, I knew you'd come through. Let's have a little gander at our affinity, finally, fuckboy. I feel like Aurelius was the easiest one to get up. But I think that's because I had the guide. Are you sure that is the wisest course, Lady Rosencruz? The deviant is the unknown quantity in our equation. Once we solve him, everything else follows through. But can we solve him? I will search for what information there is about deviants in the library and from my contacts in the High Council. Surely we will dig up something. Not to mention that deviant fellow may have more minions under his control, some of whom could skulk about the palace even as we speak. If we figure out how to identify cases of mind control and how to break his compulsion, we'd be in a much better position to follow the trail back to the deviant. I can only hope you are right. Aurelius gives me an indifferent gaze but looks away immediately, not commenting. So, I clap my hands to draw everyone's attention and blah blah blah, and oh look at that, we're already at another freaking time where I need to pause. I'm so sad. And we're back. The hallways are deserted and silent, strange for this time of day. Or perhaps not so strange considering how frightened everyone has become of another assault by the deviant's assassins. No, not completely deserted after all. Someone is standing by the railing. He's looking out into the courtyard and his face turned away from me, but from the cut of his dress and the outline of his profile, it's unmistakable. Nazir. Uncharacteristically, Nazir is alone. I had gotten so used to seeing him always in the company of the palace servants, or at least Lady Ishbel, that the sight of a solitary Nazir is almost a shock. Even more uncharacteristically, Nazir looks pensive and lost in thought, far from his usual happy-go-lucky self. An impish desire seizes me and I want to tease him back to good humour. I pad quietly up to him from behind. Injecting a measure of cheerfulness that I do not feel into my voice, I call out, "Your Highness, is the weather not too splendid for you to stay within this gilded cage?" Huh? What? Oh, Valkii. I must declare you've never struck me as the silent type. Having a jolly rotten week. Yes, jolly rotten. Mind if I join you in your solitude? Of course not. Without another word, I park myself alongside him. Across the railing where we stand is the royal garden. Like the hallways, the garden is expansive, sumptuously furnished and almost deserted. Look, there's your little brother. And Harris. It looks like they're playing chess. Sure does. Looks like Harris is winning. It sure doesn't. Aurelius is down a piece and a pawn. That's only what you see. To Aurelius, they are just another gambit. Silence falls between us. In the garden, Aurelius abruptly moves a piece with a crisp, sharp motion. Harris stretches a hand towards the board, frowns, sits back instead, and scratches his head. Not every gambit works out. All of Aurelius's do. Besides, my little brother never loses at chess. That has to be an exaggeration, surely. He certainly never loses to me. Nazir laughs lightly as he turns to me, but the laughter cannot disguise the raw disappointment in his eyes. Valkii, was I wrong? It takes me no time to figure out what or who he is talking about. After all, the same thoughts have been plaguing myself. We did what we could to keep the prisoner safe, Nazir. What happened wasn't your fault or anyone's fault. I get it, I do, honestly. Still, I can't help wondering if... Nazir checks himself mid-sentence. He grins and looks away, not meeting my eyes. Nazir. Aurelius has gone and lost a rook. So he has. Can he still make a comeback with so much material down? The question isn't about him making a comeback. The question is about whether Harris is going to be checkmated in 5 moves or 10. Oh? Taking a closer look, I notice that Aurelius has broken through the pawn fortress protecting Harris's king. He has his queen and bishop already set up in a menacing cross and is patiently maneuvering his remaining rook in place for what looks like a final assault. You know what, actually? You know what I'm mildly disappointed by? That we never met Aurelius's mum. Like, why could we never just go see her? Like, what does being in seclusion even mean? I know it means, like, not really ever seeing anybody, but, like, why couldn't he see his mum? I don't really get it. I mean, I think I remember it vaguely being explained, but I don't know, once the... I don't know, I don't get it. He has his queen and bishop already set up in a menacing cross and is patiently maneuvering his remaining rook in place for what looks like a final assault. If a human life is to be lost in any case, do you think it can be spent by others? I suppose his argument against his brothers is still weighing on Nazir's mind. What do I choose to make him like me? Okay, so we're there. We made the most humane decision. I don't know if he liked that. Did he like that? To make an effort to save a life that might be lost in any case isn't wrong. Whoever can tell the future for sure. You wanted to save him instead of using him. It may not be the most diplomatic decision, but it's the most humane one. Exactly, that's what I thought. I thought it was worth a try to save him, not just as an asset, I mean. I know. My brothers, it's not like I think they had the wrong attitude. They always have their own reasonings, just... His voice trails off. Below us, Harris throws back his head and laughs. A slow smile spreads across Aurelius's face as he watches Harris reach out a finger and tip over his king. Aurelius is always better at this stuff. Making strategy, being politically... what's the word? It means ruthless, really, but sounds a deal better. Astute? Precisely. Strategizing and being astute and so forth. I've never been very good at them. In all regards, my brothers are better than... I know what Nazir is about to say, and I'm not about to let him say it. Nazir, do you know kindness is the most undervalued virtue in the world? It's very nice of you to say so, my dear. It is, isn't it? And it even happens to be true, too. Thanks very much for the pep talk and hearing me out. I feel much better already. I do too. How strange, just a while ago I was having doubts about myself. Now I am encouraging Nazir to dispel those doubts about himself, and as I do so, I am beginning to feel better. You're a kind person, Nazir. That's why I like you. Oh, you see that color in his face? Anytime a guy blushes, it's so cute. Only 2D guys though, sorry. Nazir stares at me, shocked. To my surprise, his cheeks coloured faintly. Wordlessly, side by side, we watched the crimson dusk steal across the sky. Then, the one moon, pale and clean, pierced through the wisps of cloud like a maiden unveiling herself for the first time. Hey, Nazir. The stroll, the fresh air, and the unexpected chat with Nazir had indeed done me a lot of good. The choices I had made, that we had made, perhaps some of them were for the best. Certainly there are others that weren't. In either case, it is too late to agonize over them now. I might not have been able to protect everyone I wanted to from the machinations of the deviant, but what is important is that the princes and I have survived so far. Surely I can skip this, come on. We've read this. Alright, what the heck do we do now? But I will see you after the pause. Alright, I sense a new part coming up, so search for Nazir. I decide to look for Prince Nazir. He probably wants to avoid the nobles just as much as I do. I wander around for a little while before I find him in a far-off corner, hiding behind a pillar. Before we can greet one another, however, I hear someone's voice. It takes me a second to recognize her. She's one of the Councillor Gabrielle's handmaidens, and was following close behind her mistress as they arrived at the palace. They seem to be having a good time. Prince Nazir leans in close, no doubt telling the lady some tall tale. Blushing and laughing, she clearly enjoys his company. I stop, unsure of whether I should butt in, but he notices me, shoots me a grin, and winks. The meaning is obvious, so I leave the prince alone with his latest friend and return to the throng of people. Wow, thanks you, dickhead. Oh, I guess it's time to pause again. He just fucking brushed me off. Alright, I think we have something more. It's a mission with Nazir. Nazir had received some troubling reports from the town of Spellor. The local bird population was out of control and the townsfolk required assistance lest the coming harvest fails. He asked for my assistance in fixing the problem. Given Spellorian nobles' previous track record, I could not help but wonder at their possible involvement, which I discussed with Nazir on the carriage. He mentioned that the nobles had ordered the elimination of foxes and coyotes some months earlier. I tutted at this. Without their natural predators, the bird population was guaranteed to bloom, and so I told him so. Leaving the palace does not mean that one stops learning, I say. Nazir seemed more interested in my teachings regarding this, and I dare say it was due to its immediate practical application. He truly cares about the townsfolk, and for that I can only admire him. We were greeted warmly upon our arrival, and the villagers recognizing Nazir instantly. The prince himself seemed eager to get to work, so we went to the farm soon after. The cheer of the good weather was stymied by the constant bird calls. Every time we heard one, I swear I saw Nazir's eyelid twitch. Still, I refused to sentence the birds to a painful death by magic, and one misaimed spark could set countless crops to flames. In the end, Nazir and I used wind and water magic respectively to slow the birds down. I then shot them using a crossbow. They had grown used to congregating around the farm, so we hunted most of them fairly quickly. I maintained that, despite popular opinion, it was unwise to hunt all of the birds, for they did have the ability to control the rodent population. Nazir suggested a compromise: scarecrows. They would deter birds from the crops and hunt pests instead. I agreed wholeheartedly, and we spent the rest of our time in Spellor crafting enchanted scarecrows for the farmers. It was rather tedious work, but Nazir kept the atmosphere light with banter. Though Nazir being Nazir, he did get up to some mischief, such as fashioning a scarecrow that looked quite too much like Prince Aurelius for me to brush off. I must have stared at it for a long time before Nazir laughed loudly and dishevelled the scarecrow so that the resemblance was gone. At any rate, the farmers were very pleased with our work, and the coming harvest was forecasted to be good. Accept it, whatever. Here we go, we're on a route. I'll go with Nazir. Certainly, I shall prepare the reply. Taking a deep breath, I feel myself tremble in anticipation. It's been a while since I've participated in a proper hunt. Alright, but now we need to pause again. And we're back. Even from afar, I can hear the bustle of activity and see colourful flags spreading across the field. It seems like every noble house in the kingdom is present on the hunting ground today. Aristocrats sit as— oh, we already know this. And finally, well now, my favourite royal tutor in the world. You only have one royal tutor. Nazir, as usual, cheerily ignores what I had said. He flings an arm around my shoulder and pats his chest conspiratorially. Look here, my dear Valkii, there's something I've been wanting to talk with you about. It wouldn't happen to be another idea that ends up with both of us getting into trouble, would it? Nazir throws me an astonished and innocent look. Me? Get you into trouble? My dear Valkii. My dear Nazir. How could you say such baseless accusations? You wound me. I sigh. Nazir's grin widens. His eyes are gleefully alight with disreputable intentions. Oh, all right. What is it? You see, I'm bored. Here we go. I feel for your plight. I know you would. I don't suppose you have a plan to remedy it? I ask in my most unhurried tone. As it happens, I do. He holds out an arm. With a feeling of excitement mingled with trepidation, I lay my hand on it. Where are we going? Does it matter? I laugh. Nazir pulls me towards him, and for a breathless second, I nearly lose my balance and collide against his side. Soon, I find myself being led by Nazir in the direction of the forest, leaving the subdued bustle of the hunting camp behind us. The forest is curiously tense and still, as though it is somehow unaware of the imminent hunt. A few larks flit across the sunlit canopies of trees. I can hear leaves and twigs crunching under every step I take. We really shouldn't go, you know. I know. I'm serious. This is a grave breach of palace security. What if there are assassins? That would be really bad. Not to mention, it wasn't long before the hunt starts when we left the camp. If we don't return soon, they might begin without us. Shocking! The very thought appalls me. I look at him and Nazir stares right back, eyes twinkling. So this is your idea? Truancy. You don't want to stick sharp objects into an angry pig until either you or it is dead, do you? Can't say that's my favourite exercise in the world. There, you see? How delightful in comparison is this carefree walk of ours through the quiet woods, at peace with ourselves and all the creatures in this good world. Look at those flowers, bright and verdant, nodding in the breeze, scattering their fragrance across the air. Aren't they splendid and full of the joy of life? Why shouldn't we too rejoice? Nazir, on how many people have you practiced that speech? Why, only you, my dear Valkii. Right. It's a pretty speech and you deliver it beautifully. Thank you. I clasp my arm tighter around his as my heartbeat quickens at his nonsense. At first, it startles him, then Nazir breaks into a smile. I'm glad you liked it. In companionable silence, we continue our stroll through the summer forest. I take a deep breath, feeling happy and content as I haven't in a while. I say, Valkii. Nazir's playful tone has abruptly turned serious, and we'll find out why in the next video. Bye.